The ash of a dying colony drifted silently across the void. What little remained of Outpost Theta 9 flickered dimly against the cold gleam of the Korodax dreadnought, Velcaron Ascendant, now parked in low orbit like a predator at rest. On the command deck, Admiral Zelvor sat reclined in his cradle throne, armored claws drumming across a console of humming crystal nodes. Below him, the main viewport displayed a burnt smear where the human settlement once stood. It had taken 6 planetary strikes and only 4 minutes to reduce it to powder. A few human signals still pulsed faintly, perhaps escape pods, maybe scavengers. Either way, irrelevant. Still breathing, murmured Lieutenant Drex, eyes focused on a data shard. Their kind is persistent. Zelvor didn't glance at him. So are weeds. Until the flame finds them. The bridge officers chuckled, a low, clicking sound reverberating through their bone-plated armor. War with humans had grown tedious. Years ago, the Council considered them a curiosity, then a nuisance, then a resource to be mined. Now, after generations of expanding borders and subjugating minor worlds, humans were simply another backward species that hadn't learned its place. A chirp from the rear hollow table silenced the chamber. Strategist Ikris, cold-eyed and calculated, extended her tendrils to project the latest frontline reports. Red indicators flared. Human colonies raised, resistance collapsed, only remnants fleeing deeper into the galactic rim. Resistance thinning sector-wide, she confirmed. Projected timeline for final extermination, 9 cycles. Zelvor gave a slow nod. And Earth? Unknown. Shielded. Communications intermittent. No formal fleet response. They appear fractured. A smile crept across the Admiral's face. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Then perhaps it's time we cut the head from the beast. Across the galaxy, in the gleaming spires of the Council Citadel on Orin Prime, High Strategist Virex of the Korodax Empire signed an order without looking up. The request, authorization for a full incursion on Sol System, was buried beneath a dozen similar extermination edicts. Earth was just another name in a long list of fractured colony world. He didn't even pronounce it correctly. The whatever. He leaned back, sipping chilled vapor wine, basking in the scent of burning thornroot incense and the gentle hum of floating datapads. Around him, the Galactic Council chamber continued its performance, ambassadors gesturing, sub-alliances posturing, minor species whining about trade routes or security guarantees. No one spoke of Earth with concern. A low-tier world. Scattered history. No central fleet. No council seat. Their incursions were annoying, yes, but futile. Their culture? Redundant. Their military? Rudimentary. Their unity? Non-existent. One counselor joked, if we don't burn them, they'll do it themselves. Virex smirked. But something about the timing itched at him. He tapped a hologram. Human colonies had not defended themselves as expected. They surrendered too easily. Some settlements didn't resist at all. Others self-destructed before capture. It lacked pattern. He pushed the thought aside. Across the hall, a younger Korodax aide approached and hesitated before speaking. Sir, with respect, are we certain Earth is the right next target? Their transmissions, some of them suggest. Virex waved him off. It's just static. Propaganda from a dying species. But the data shows. The Council has ruled, he snapped. Earth falls. In the silence that followed, the aide bowed and returned to his station. Virex stared out the window at the swirling lights of space and frowned. Back aboard the Velcaron Ascendant, the fleet assembled. Thousands of ships, sleek, jagged, beautiful in their symmetry, aligned above a blue star. The jump to Sol was prepped, coordinates aligned, hyperspines charged. Zelvor stood before the command pulpit, arms outstretched. His voice echoed across the decks. Today we erase their route. Today, the species that dared strike our patrols will vanish. Cheers rose. Weapons hummed. Engines roared. The stars twisted. Space collapsed inward. The fleet vanished into Foldstream. No alarms blared. No resistance greeted them. Just Earth, suspended in the quiet cradle of its system, a sphere of swirling clouds and oceans, uncannily peaceful. Zalvor narrowed his eyes. No defense grid. No orbitals. No signal scramblers. Lieutenant Drex shook his head. Scans show old tech, primitive satellites, atmospheric drones. No orbital fleet. They're unguarded. The Admiral's lips curled. Then let us begin. Probes launched. The moon was secured within hours. Ground teams landed in North America, Europe, Asia. No military formations were detected. Instead, there were research facilities, civilian centers, empty cities. One squad breached a medical complex outside what used to be Toronto. Inside, nothing but flickering screens, dormant robotics, and recorded logs. Then came the first scream. It wasn't human. 2 soldiers vanished from internal telemetry. A third was found twisted backward, limbs reformed, eyes hollowed out, killed not by force, but by systems that shouldn't exist. A low pulse erupted across the landing site. All Korodak's armor systems froze. Then, blackout. The Admiral spun to the screen. "Where's my ground feed?" Drex stumbled. "Sir, orbital ships are, one just vanished." "Vanished? Just gone. No explosion, no debris. Like it was swallowed." Silence. Then a signal. "Human." The screen brightened, revealing a woman seated calmly at a dim console. Dark hair, weathered face, uniform bearing Earth insignia. "Admiral Zalvor," she said evenly. "I'm Admiral Celine Voss of the Terran Defense Protocol." The Admiral hissed. "You're finished. You've lost. Your colonies." "We're decoys," she said quietly. He froze. "We allowed you to take them. We wanted your patterns. Your methods. We sacrificed 12 colonies to watch you work. And now..." She leaned forward. "Now we respond." The feed cut. Nothing but black space ahead. Then, motion. Behind the Korodak's fleet, dozens of spatial ruptures appeared. Silent. Seamless. Like rips in the void. Out of each slipped a human warship. Not bulky. Not elegant. Efficient. Unpainted metal. Invisible edges. Coated in ion-disruptive plating. No visible weapons, but humming with energy. Zalvor stared. They had no fleet. Drex murmured, "They were the fleet." The Admiral's jaw tightened. Evasive. Before the order finished, the first Korodak's cruiser vanished. Not exploded. Erased. Section by section, ship by ship, the human fleet dissected the formation, cutting angles, shattering trajectories, dropping silent drones that burrowed into hulls and turned them against each other. And still, no radio chatter. No boast. Just surgical, relentless retaliation. In the chaos, Zalvor turned to Drex, voice low. "How long have they been planning this?" Drex didn't answer. He couldn't. His eyes were locked on the feed, on a line of human ships advancing slowly toward the Velkaron ascendant. 12 ships. No shields active. No formation. Just confidence. The Admiral stepped back. "Withdraw. Now." But space around them was already folding inward. Voss's voice returned, soft through a hidden channel. "You shouldn't have come to Earth." And then, silence. Only the stars remained. Smoke still drifted across the shattered ruins of orbit as Admiral Virex watched from the safe distance of the Council flagship Foresight. He did not speak, but the silence between each breath felt sharpened, like he was inhaling glass. Below, the debris of Zalvor's once proud fleet scattered across Earth's upper atmosphere, tumbling like leaves in a silent storm. "They didn't fight back," muttered his aide, Karen, reviewing the footage again. "Not at first. They let us come." Virex remained still, mandibles tight. He had served in 5 extinction campaigns, crushed rebellions that spanned systems, reduced moons to sterilized rock. But never had an enemy waited. And never like this. Not in complete silence. Not with a plan that reached into the attacker. He gestured, and the holoscreen changed. Human warships, unlike any previous design, ghosted through battle footage. They moved without flair, without pride, only purpose. They ignored the Korodak's cries, the surrender pings, the diplomatic bursts. When they arrived, they dismantled. And then they left. No occupation. No broadcast. Just disappearance. Where are their cities? Karen asked, zooming in on a continent-spanning blackout zone. No heat signatures. No civilian chatter. They've gone underground, Virex said finally. Or beneath our spectrum. They were never meant to be visible. This whole time. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Earth had been waiting. Inside the war chamber of the Council Citadel, the chaos was absolute. Members of every core species barked over one another. Accusations, theories, panic poorly veiled as protocol. Screens showed sector after sector losing contact. Human echo fleets, autonomous strike arms, possibly AI-guided, had begun dismantling outposts across the mid-tier world. Strategic transport lanes blinked off. Wormhole gates began pulsing strange signals, some now locked by unknown encryption. Virex didn't sit. He stood in the center of the storm, watching the council fracture. They must have help, growled Counselor Draven of the Uruk. No solitary race could manage this much coordination, this quickly. They are not alone, rasped Savaro, a pale, crystalline entity from the Ventari Dominion. They are united. Ridiculous, snapped a voice. Humans can't unite. It's in their blood to war among themselves. Virex turned slowly to face them all. Exactly. And what does it mean that such a species has united? No one answered. He tapped his claw to the display, pulling up files long archived. Earth's history. Not myth. Record. The human wars of the 20th and 21st centuries. The climate collapse. The resource fights. The civilian uprisings. Plagues. Artificial intelligence conflict. Mass migrations. Civilizational near extinction. Multiple times. And through each, survival. They don't avoid war, he said, more to himself than the room. They refine it. The chamber hushed. They watched us come, he said, louder now. And rather than meet us halfway, they made us walk into the ocean, smiling. And when we drowned, they didn't even celebrate. Another aide approached, clearly shaken. Sir, we received a broadcast from Earth. Not a message. A file. Virex waved him forward. Play it. It began as darkness. Then flickering film. Grainy. Dated. The feed crackled, shifting rapidly through centuries of human conflict. Footage of bombers, trenches, burning cities. Mushroom clouds blooming like poison flowers. Then more, guerrilla warfare, starvation, burning jungles, orbital bombardments, cyber wars, riots, drone massacres. Screams. Then silence. Then a voice. Admiral Voss. We know what war is, she said. We grew up with it. We fought it across centuries, on soil soaked with the bones of our own kin. You thought we were fragile because we fractured. But we were tempering steel. The screen faded. Karen's voice cracked. They wanted us to watch that. No, Virex whispered. They wanted us to understand. The Council demanded retaliation. Half measures. Peace treaties. Open diplomacy. Virex argued for none of it. He walked quietly from the chamber, back to the fleet command hall. There, he ordered all outposts to fall silent. Not to strike. Not to engage. Observe only, he commanded. Any ship that engages without direct order will be left behind. Karen looked to him with confusion. You believe we should surrender? No, Virex said. But the next move isn't ours. We've already played it. Across the galaxy, fleets began retracting. Not fast, slowly, cautiously. But not unnoticed. Humanity responded not with pursuit, but presence. In less than 3 cycles, the humans reappeared, on fringe planets, mining belts, derelict moons once abandoned. They didn't conquer. They stabilized. Local populations. Alien and hybrid species once under Council rule, reported medical assistance, tech upgrades, even water purification systems. The Council didn't know how to react. Virex watched it all from the shadows. His political career was unraveling, rumors of fear, of collapse, but none dared confront him directly. Not after what they saw in Vasa's war file. Yet something deeper gnawed at him. Not just the strategy. Not the tech. The calm. Every human message had the same tone. Measured. Cold. Not cruel, just final. Earth had crossed a line and could never return. In a rare moment of isolation, Virex stood before a small, sealed chamber aboard Foresight. Inside, kept in stasis, was a human artifact retrieved from one of the colonies long ago, barely noticed then. A steel box etched with old Earth glyph. Unremarkable. Today, he opened it. Inside was a book. A paper one. The title, The Art of War. He read the first line aloud. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. Virex closed the book slowly. In the far distance, Earth rotated serenely on its axis, the quiet heart of a storm that had just begun to unfold. And the stars, for the first time in his life, seemed just a little bit darker. The chamber's lights were dimmed, but not for ceremony. It was fear. The Galactic Council no longer gathered to rule, they gathered to grasp at control slipping through their fingers. Every representative in the room, from crystalline Ventari delegates to the scaled nobles of the Zanari conglomerate, carried the same unspoken realization. The center had failed to hold. High Strategist Virex stood apart from the others, observing them not with contempt, but with pity. Their voices rose in escalating panic, urgent, disorderly, frantic. No votes passed. No coalitions formed. Their fear was too loud. Humanity has violated interstellar war protocols, barked Counselor Threx of the Vuxari, gesturing wildly with his claws. They bypass negotiations. Use drones to erase fleet. They jam our envoys. They offer no terms, said another. Just presence. Occupation without soldiers. Control without flags. Because they don't need recognition, Virex said quietly. Eyes turned toward him. The chamber hushed. Even silence now came with dread. They do not care for our legitimacy. They are not asking to join us. They are asking if we still wish to exist, he continued. And their weapons are not their greatest threat. Their restraint is. A long breath passed through the hall, as if every being collectively realized how deeply they'd misjudged the enemy. Counselor Savaro shimmered faintly, voice resonating like cracked glass. Then we must negotiate. Virex shook his head. You've waited too long. We are not equals at the table. We never were. A chime interrupted. Incoming message. Unencrypted. Human. Virex stiffened. No voice this time, just a single line of text. We are removing instability. You may remain if you adapt. The message terminated itself, leaving behind a subtle pulse in the system, an algorithmic signature encoded with planetary coordinate locations the humans deemed unstable. Already Virex could see the pattern. Not enemy worlds, Council-controlled ones. Moments later, those planets vanished from the network. Not destroyed, simply blacked out. Satellites dead. Infrastructure offline. Cities gone dark. The humans weren't annihilating, they were isolating. Severing the Council's influence with surgical precision. And without a single fleet battle, territory shifted hands. Later, in private quarters aboard Foresight, Virex reviewed intercepted surveillance footage from one of the targeted worlds. No troops landed. No violence. Autonomous probes arrived, entered key infrastructure hubs, and reprogrammed them. Communication networks were rerouted. The planet's climate regulators, once barely maintained under Council governance, were stabilized. Food production increased within days. Local populations reported no casualties. They welcomed the change. Even now, the humans weren't seen as invaders. They were seen as liberators. Because they weren't conquering, they were simply doing better. Karen entered quietly, her usual sharp posture dulled by fatigue. Sir, 3 more council members have fled the core worlds. Their ships are headed toward Earth-controlled space. Virex didn't respond. You were right, she continued. They studied our systems, our failures. But they didn't just study war. They studied governance, diplomacy, infrastructure. No, he corrected. They studied us. She paused. And what are we now? Virex turned to the window, watching Earth's moon rise above the distant sphere. We are the ones explaining our relevance. That's never a good sign. Karen moved to speak, but hesitated. We did provoke them. But this level of response, it feels calculated. Cold. It is, he replied. Because they no longer care what we feel. This isn't revenge. It's replacement. Later that cycle, in a lower deck room deep within the Foresight, Virex stood alone in the hologrid vault. With a silent command, he brought up archived Earth files. Not battle logs, culture, music, literature, philosophy, psychology. Thousands of years of expression and contradiction. He watched a human film, black and white, ancient, featuring a man standing against a system. He watched their comedy, brutal, self-deprecating, merciless. He watched their tragedies, quiet, slow, unresolved. And then, at last, he opened the war files again. Not the weapons, the tactics, guerrilla warfare in jungles, naval blockades, psychological disruption, misinformation campaigns, sacrifices calculated decades in advance. They had buried themselves in the role of victim for decades. The galaxy had bought the story. Until Earth made its move. He summoned Admiral Voss's face again. Static at first, then clear. She looked tired, but not weak. Her eyes betrayed no malice, just inevitability. In her last transmission, she had said, "We were never your enemies. Until you gave us no choice. We do not conquer. We prevent." He closed the file. Back in the council chamber, a new plan was proposed. Mass mobilization, perhaps using council-controlled AI to match humanity's ghost fleet. Virex vetoed it. Loudly. You cannot outmatch a species that outlasts themselves for sport. A few listened. Most didn't. Their hubris still lingered like a dying flame, too stubborn to die clean. So be it. In the shadows of his own quarters, Virex opened a private channel. He sent a transmission, not to Council Command, not to the Coridax war fleet, but directly to the Earth diplomatic relay. His message was brief. I wish to speak. As a student, not a general. He waited. No reply came. But hours later, the command logs updated quietly. His name appeared on Earth's provisional list of safe contact. And next to it, status. Observed. Not hostile. Potential interlocutor. That night, for the first time in decades, Virex slept without encryption fields active. He no longer feared Earth's retaliation. He feared what came next. The sky above Orin Prime had changed. It no longer shimmered with the vibrant comings and goings of the Council's great fleets. The once crowded space lanes were empty, eerily still, like arteries cut off from a dying heart. From the upper balconies of the Citadel's west wing, Virex watched this new silence, his claws laced behind his back, posture relaxed but spine coiled like a wire. He could feel it, the end. Not loud, not shattering. Quiet, methodical, like a surgeon pressing down on the final pulse of an ancient body that had refused to die peacefully. In the courtyard below, human emissary ships began descending with solemn grace. Their hulls bore no flags, no emblems. Just matte gray surfaces and flickering identity lights. No need to declare their authority, it had already been demonstrated. Council security forces stood in formation, ceremonial, unnecessary. Earth's delegation walked between them without flinching, without looking. Leading them was Admiral Celine Voss. She did not stride like a conqueror. She moved like someone exhausted by victory. Virex descended the stone steps to meet her, flanked by only one aide. The last time they'd shared a channel, she'd dismantled a fleet with a whisper. Now she extended a hand. He paused only a moment before accepting it. "Admiral," he said evenly. "High strategist," she replied. They stood there for a breath, two predators eyeing the same wound from different angles. Then, without preamble, they walked side by side into the chamber that once echoed with pomp and arrogance. Today it was nearly empty. Only 7 council members remained. The rest had fled, resigned, or simply disappeared. Voss took her seat without ceremony. She didn't sit higher. She didn't issue demands. She just waited. Virex gestured lightly toward the archive node. "I assume Earth intends to occupy?" "No," she said. "But we won't withdraw." One of the remaining counselors, the elderly Draven, who had once mocked human resistance as delayed extinction, leaned forward, voice trembling with defiance poorly masked as formality. "You think yourselves rulers?" "No," Voss said again. "We think of ourselves as guardians of consequences." Silence reigned. Karen shifted beside Virex, clearly unsettled. She whispered, "They didn't even dismantle our fleet. They just disabled our meaning." That was the truth of it. The power hadn't shifted by force. Earth had altered the frame of the galaxy itself. Planets once reliant on Council aid now received faster, better solutions from unmarked drones. Trade flowed more smoothly through Earth-controlled wormholes. Refugee populations voluntarily migrated to human-supervised settlement. Every facet of civilization had been infected by something more efficient. Not domination. Relevance. And Earth didn't need to rule if the rest of the galaxy simply preferred them. Counselor Savaro, brittle as ever, made one final attempt. "Then what is your offer? If not conquest, then what?" Voss leaned forward slightly, eyes steady. "Governorship. Autonomy under observation. Representation, eventually. But trust takes longer to build than it does to shatter." "And you decide who governs?" Draven snapped. "No," she said. "We offer the seat. You decide whether to stand in it." She turned to Virex. "You know the systems. You've seen the cracks. You spoke when the others still clawed for comfort." Virex felt it before she said it. The weight of it settled on his shoulders like a sentence, and yet, it didn't feel like punishment. "We want you to serve as diplomatic coordinator for the Unified Transition Authority," she said. "No title beyond that. No throne. Just responsibility." Karen's breath caught. Draven sputtered. But Virex only nodded once. "I will." No further ceremony followed. No applause. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the room, the galaxy, had shifted in ways that could never be undone. Later, Virex stood alone in the observation atrium, watching a child float gently in one of the human-designed low-gravity play domes. Not a Korodax child. Not Ventari or Vuxari. Human. Laughing. Weightless. The dome had been constructed on council grounds within days. Not a symbol of victory. A symbol of permanence. Voss stepped beside him without announcement. "They still believe in wonder," she said softly. "That's what makes them dangerous. And yet they don't seek control?" She smiled, faint and weary. "Control is a myth. We seek influence. Subtler. Slower. But deeper." He nodded. The council never knew how to whisper. Then learn. They stood in silence. No guards. No translators. Just 2 architects of a galaxy that no longer obeyed the old rules. Virex watched the stars blink to life beyond the glass. Once, each point of light had meant conquest, ownership, protocol. Now they looked different. Earth had not won through overwhelming force. They'd won through patience, clarity, and silence weaponized with surgical intent. "We thought your silence meant weakness," Virex said at last. "We thought your noise meant strength," Voss replied. "Seems we were both wrong." Beyond the observation dome, in a corridor too quiet to be noticed, another ship departed. A small one. Civilian configured. It bore no markings. It moved beyond the jurisdiction of council space, slipping silently toward a dark quadrant yet to be charted. Inside were humans, scientists, engineers, strategists, explorers. Humanity had turned back an empire not to sit on its throne, but because they were already looking past it. The galaxy would not be the same, and it would never be theirs again.